In this week's episode, I make custom Funko Pop figures for Megan's birthday, here on Kapow. Like many nerds, Megan is a fan of Funko Pop figures. She has a small collection of them, nothing crazy. And so a while back, I had the idea of having someone make some custom figures of us. So I've been meaning to do that kind of every time a holiday comes around, a birthday, etc. And then this year, I realized, well, why don't I make them myself? So that's exactly what I attempted to do. So for this particular project, I knew I couldn't use something like super Sculpty. You need to bake that in the oven, and that's not a great idea when it comes to a plastic Funko Pop. So I needed something else that could air cure, but also be durable. And what I ended up going with is Aves Apoxie Sculpt. I got this idea from a lot of the different artists that I follow online who do toy modifications and remixes, and a lot of them use Aves Apoxie Sculpt. And so I figured, hey, I've never tried it before, why not give it a shot? And so I did. And I was horrible at it. It's definitely very different from working with Super Sculpty. You really have about 2 hours of working time, and even then towards the end of that, it becomes a lot harder to work with. I don't know, I have very mixed feelings about working with it. So initially I tried to design the bodies completely out of Aves, and that went poorly. A lot of that has to do with my inexperience as a sculptor. I think as I get better at sculpting, I'll have better results. I also discovered that Aves does really well when you do it in layers. So if you get your base form down and then you kind of add on and sand and carve and sand and carve, you're gonna get a much better result than just trying to do the entire thing perfectly all in one go around, because you only have 2 hours to work with it, and then it's not fully cured, but you're really not going to be able to get much more out of the material. So my first couple attempts did not go so well, and because this was a time crunch type of project, what I ended up deciding to do was get some existing Funko Pop bodies and make some modifications to those. Though I did end up using this Apoxie Sculpt to make those modifications, and I think that's where this material shines. It does a fantastic job when you have something that you are working off of that you're then adding to. So I can definitely see why so many different sculptors out there and so many different people who make toy modifications use Aves for this purpose. It's super durable, and it just works very well for things that are going to be handled and used. Generally, where I had the most success with Aves is in sculpting the little details and the hair. And again, that's because I really like Aves as a material that you use to add on to something that's pre-existing, to make modifications to that thing, because you can sand it and it's durable, and in that way it's easy to work with. It's really the time limit in sculpting an entire form out of the material that I personally, as a budding sculptor, if you will, that's the part that I have a problem with. 2 hours is not enough for someone like myself. I also think if I had a better setup for sanding, I might have liked the material a little bit more than I did. My office is a terrible place for that, very poor ventilation, so I try to do things that involve very little dust. Not always successful with that, but that's what I attempt to do. So anything like this that involves a lot of sanding to get the most out of the material is not really going to be my cup of tea at this point in time. Eventually, if I have some sort of better workspace for something like that, like a real workshop instead of just a spare bedroom, then certainly. But for now, it's a little bit harder for me to work with. Overall, my feelings on Apoxie Sculpt in general are fairly mixed. It's definitely a material I will go back to. There's definitely a place for it in my arsenal. I don't think will ever be my go-to sculpting material just because it's very finicky and you have to work in such a small bracket of time, and anyone who knows me knows that that's just not how I do projects, unfortunately. So I will definitely be using it again, but I think a lot of the applications in which I'll be using it will be more modification related rather than building a base form out of it. But you never know. Okay, well, as always, thanks for watching. Links to Instagram and Twitter and Patreon and all of those things are down in the description. I might also have a link to my website down there as well. I'm not sure if I'll have that finished by the time this video is up. As always, thanks to Matt Ritchie and the Sometimes Why for the use of their song Pauper's Drop in my theme song. In general, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out down in the comments below or on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. If you have any questions or suggestions for other videos, or you just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you and hear about your thoughts. Other than that, as always, thanks for watching, and go out and try something new.